And this is Bethany Williams, and you're listening to the Wasted Hour podcast.
Hi, this is Martin, and you're listening to the Wasted Hour podcast, the podcast about fashion, artists, inspiration, and creative culture. And I'm very happy to introduce today's guest, fashion designer tuned in from London, Bethany Williams. Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for taking the time, and thank you so much for buying headphones on the last minute so that we're able to do this.
No worries.
It's a bummer that we can't do this in live and in person like we initially planned to, last year. But on the other side, I'm really happy that technique has come this far. That we're able to do this, now. So today I want to talk about a little bit about, of course, your background and fashion, of course, sustainability and social responsibility as well. But the first thing that I wanted to ask you is, I heard that when you were little, that your mom owned a curtain shop and you helped her out doing things. So I'm really curious, at what age did you design your first piece of clothes that you wear?
So my mum, she was originally, when we lived in Liverpool, she was a pattern cutter for a factory. And then we moved to the Isle of Man and lived with my grandparents, with my mum. And she then set up, making curtains and bedspreads and cushions for people's houses, bespoke, handmade. So I used to help her out quite a lot when we were younger, and we'd have a studio space at home where she would make, and then also my nan's very would be always knitting, so I've kind of just always been around textiles and making, and then my mum would make a lot of clothes for us when we were younger, and even dressing gowns or so she was making my clothes from quite a young age. So I was kind of always around it and making in the household from a really young age.
Cool. But what do you remember the first piece that you made yourself?
That I made?
Yeah.
I think because I was doing a textile project for school, and I asked Mum if we could make a block of my body size, so then you can make patterns that fit you really well. So we did that, and then I did my first garment off that block for myself when I was, maybe 10. And then she'd always make for us as well. And then I was always helping at home making as well, and hand stitching or helping check cloth when it comes in and checking it's not damaged.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, but after you finished school, you decided to study fine arts and not fashion.
Yeah, so I finished school and I actually had applied to do sustainable development at St Andrews. But I took a year out to do an art foundation in the Isle of Man, which is actually it's a really good art foundation. And then I was I don't want to go to St Andrews anymore. And then I was obviously loved textiles. And they were oh, maybe you should go and do a textiles degree. But I really liked the art philosophy and contemporary art and the meaning behind making, or why we produce things. So I went to Brighton to do my degree in critical fine art practice. So it's fine art with theory and understanding why people produce art and kind of its effect in the world.
Yeah. What did you take away from the time or from that studies? Which is still relevant to you today?
Oh, I think because I wrote my dissertation on does like art have the ability to have a political effect outside of itself? And I was really interested in like does art or creativity have the power to like change the world around it? So I kind of looked a lot at kind of systems design, like in like contemporary art, and like providing like a system that helps a community or will like infiltrate multinational companies and take their resources to elsewhere through a system, an art system. So I kind of really love the work of Superflex, like the art collective, and kind of I've really taken that away from me. It's like systems design, when art has ability to move or make changes beyond itself, not necessarily just art, but like creativity or fashion or music. I feel like I read a lot of philosophers like Jacques Rancière, and then also looking at like mass production and and like how that's had an effect on art or creativity or and the world. So it kind of gave me a lot of the backbones, I think, to my practice conceptually.
Yeah, totally. But what's really great to hear is that even like before you studied fine arts, like and just when you already finished school, the sustainable thought or like the of you wanting to make a change was already there. And was it like already present like in your home when you were a child?
Yeah.
Like, these kind of topics?
Yeah. So for my A-level project for geography, I did like my case study on the landfill in the Isle of Man. And my mum would drive me up to the landfill, which is like at the northern point of the island, to like take soil measurements and like biodiversity measurements and like I wrote my whole like research was all around like the effect that the landfill site had on the island. And then so I've always kind of like my at home, because I live obviously with my grandparents and my mum. My granddad was very I don't know, like he grew his own food and eat seasonally, and but he was born on Vancouver Island and then I went back there to see my family, and I felt like it really made sense. The way that people lived there was very much why he was quite different, I think, on the Isle of Man. So those kind of ideas have always been in my household.
Cool. Because I also like read that your mother was on the forefront of those kind of things as well. And just when I read this and like with your grandparents as well, I remember that like my grandparents, they were really also going to like buy biological food like in the middle of the 90s, and I hated it as a kid because like it smelled strange in the store. And like when I was like 5 or 6, I liked the normal supermarket a lot more. But now when I'm thinking back, I be like, they were already doing like things that that are sold to us as new now, so they were already taking care of that. So amazing. But when you like finished your studies of fine arts, what brought you to fashion?
So I like obviously went to study art, and I didn't really like the idea of like studying fashion. I just found it like a bit wasteful, and I don't know, I just didn't see that where I would end up, kind of thing. But obviously like I've grown up around making and textiles and producing garments. So on my degree I worked with a charity in Brighton and created my own like system, and then I did like a gallery shop and was also like sold it was like a circular system like I've done before. It was like the first one, and then I was really interested in Stephen Willits, who's like an artist. He does like he does flowcharts and diagrams around like social systems. So we had like big diagrams and the gallery shop we built. And yeah, I created a collection, an upcycle collection with a charitable partner in Brighton. And that was kind of like the first thing, like, and I was also working at Garage magazine at the time. So, and it was I worked there for like since it started. So I've started on the first issue with them.
When was it? It was around like 2011 or something? Or,
yeah, 2011. So yeah, I was working there, and it was really amazing because we were like working on projects where it was all like 50-50 collaboration between artists and designers. So we do like, you know, we like did a project with like Marina Abramovich, or, you know, like we did a project with the Chapman brothers, but it was about like collaboration between two different kind of the art world and the fashion world, and bringing it together and creating something quite unexpected. So I feel like that whole kind of way of collaboration really informed my practice from working there.
Oh, cool. Because I also heard that you applied for St. Martin's, but then pulled back your application because you thought like studying there wouldn't help you like for the way that you wanted to go.
Yeah, well, I think because I was at LCF, I went to LCF just because they had the Centre of Sustainability, and
that's the London College of Fashion, right?
So they have the Centre of Sustainability in the university, and yeah, it just felt a lot better for me there. But I know, like, you know, that St. Martin's is got an incredible reputation, but I think at that time for me, like I really wanted to be able to use the Centre of Sustainability within my practice. And Dilys Williams, like the founder of it, was, you know, like she was very like inspiring to me. So, you know, just to be able to know that you can have a tutorial. But I think they open that up to UAL, so that's fine. But yeah, I just felt, just for me, LCF seemed like a better fit for me. But I know like St. Martin's is amazing. It's like one of the best schools. So, but I just, LCF at the time just felt better.
Yeah. But did you apply to do like menswear or women's wear there, or were you like kind of specific at the beginning?
Yeah, so LCF, I applied for menswear, and then I also applied for, it's called Fashion Futures. So it's like the sustainability MA, but I ended up doing the menswear because I just felt I just wanted to be more technical, because I've had like a theory background to my BA, and I wanted to get more technical. And with the MA, you had like 5 days in studio, and with Fashion Futures, you had 2 days. So I just wanted to be like making, because I kind of felt like I'd set up my like system, and then it was just because also like the technicians at LCF are like incredible and so supportive through the MA. You know, they're just so incredible. So it was just amazing to have that technical support.
Cool. But what struck me is that from the beginning, or like one of your, I don't know if it was your graduate collection, you already implemented like a lot of alternative materials into your collection as well, because you collaborated with Tesco and the food bank. Right? Could you tell us a little bit about that? Like when did you start thinking about like an alternative way of making clothes?
Because I did that on my BA as well as like repurposing and like collaborating. So I kind of like had started doing it, and then I did like a couple of projects on the side before then going on to my master's. But yeah, I kind of, you know, I used like the cardboard and did basket weaving and made that into a fabric, and then we did like a cycle of exchange, and offered like a food parcel in exchange for waste, and then we specified in like knit and denim, and then reknitted but mixed it with other recycled content as well. So we started working with like a sorting facility called Chris Carey's Collections. So they're based in Kent, and they like sort and like collect recycling and sort. So that's when we started working with them also.
Amazing. What was it around the time already that you started thinking about setting up your own label?
Yeah, so I think like that's what I wanted to do before my MA, and kind of the MA was to just, I don't know, to help me develop it properly, you know, like construction wise, and because I was also like a bit scared because I didn't do the BA in fashion, so I was just scared technically, like what, you know, like how far am I behind? So that I was obviously like quite scared about that, and then, but I just, I obviously love working within like social projects, and I love textiles, and I love like giving them time and making it into something new, but I just there wasn't really anyone that I could work for and do all of those things together. Yeah. So that's kind of like why I set up my practice, was to allow me to kind of bring all of my passions into one place.
Yeah, that's what I think is amazing. And like from the beginning when I discovered your label, just like to sort things out and like how much stuff you're actually doing. Because like I think for each collection you work together with a social charity as well, and with another facility as well who help you in making the clothes, right?
Yeah.
Like those are all like the two sides, which I think is like totally amazing. And just when we met for the first time in person at the showroom in Paris, when you told me everything about it, like I just got back to the hotel and dived into it, and into all those charities. So like, when do you find the time to look for like a social charity that you want to work with for the next collection? How do you approach that?
Yeah. So we work with like the social manufacturing projects, so that just never changes, and we always work with them. And then each collection will work with a charitable cause and fundraise for them and kind of story tell the ideas through the collection. But like we've worked with the Magpie Project now for 2 collections, just because, we've been working with them throughout lockdown.
Yeah. What do they do? What does the Magpie Project do for all the listeners that don't know about it?
Yeah. So the Magpie Project is a project based in Newham, in London. So Newham has the highest level of homeless families in the whole of the UK. So there's, I think, over 2,000 homeless families in the one borough. So the Magpie Project was set up 3 years ago, and it won the Homeless Charity of the Year at the Mayor's Office. But it's set up to support families in temporary, unsuitable or no accommodation. So they have so it's families and under 5s, and they have a play group, but it's also like a support network. They supply food, clothing, legal aid. They bring kind of social services to the Magpie Project, so the mums don't have to seek social services, because 80% of the families that are part of the Magpie Project are they're under this legislation called no recourse to public funds. So 80% of the people. So it's like a legislation set up for immigration status. So you may have rights to reside in the UK, you may have rights to work, but you don't have access to social services. So there's like 100,000 children in the UK under that circumstance. And it basically prevents, especially with COVID, it kind of highlighted this massive crack in the system, because people may be working and get sick and they're not able to have any support through social services, even though you're working and paying taxes in the UK. And a lot of the families at Magpie will be living on £34 a week. and then they're in one room, really unsuitable accommodation for a family. So the Magpie Project was set up to kind of support and help mothers in this circumstances.
Yeah, but how was the first contact from you to the Magpie Project? How did they react when you told them I want to work with you, or did they approach you?
Yeah, so basically they have a student who was doing their PhD at UCL, like a research project with them, and she actually reached out to me saying I think you should come and meet the project, it's great. And then I met Jane, the founder, and then we've been working together ever since. So yeah, she's just fab. She's just such an inspiration, and what she's doing there is incredible, and the support that they give. So it's been, and I've learned a lot working with them.
Because it's a little bit like new ground as well, for a fashion company working together with a social charity as well. And I think you're totally innovative when it comes to that.
Thank you.
So I was wondering how the first steps have been taken there, because for the first collection for Autumn Winter 19 you worked together with the Adelaide House as well. And for me, I didn't even know all those charities existed. So when when I went through all of your collections and looked up all the different charities that you worked for, it's amazing.
Thank you.
The other thing that I wanted to dive into is you not only work with them, but we strived it before that you're making kind of innovative materials as well. So when we received your first delivery as well, and when we touched the clothes for Autumn Winter 20, for example, you worked with recycled belt ends, right?
Yeah.
So I've never can you explain it? Because obviously I've never felt something like it. I've never seen something like it. And it's because we work with a sorting facility, they sort textiles, and they are on touch with lots of different recycling centres. So there was a company in Bath in the UK that have these big cream glamping tents for festivals, and they were basically they were keeping the structures, but all the cloth they were trying to get rid of, and there was 24 of these massive tents. So we were just we'll take them, because they were free as well. But then we have to get them industrially cleaned, collect them, and then they're industrially cleaned, and then we work with a screen printing studio in Peckham in London. So they're called Auto Print. So they use eco-friendly inks, and they do all hand screen printed artwork. So, yeah. For example, how long does it make to make the belt tent code, which is a masterpiece? How long?
Well, it's just such a long process, because obviously we've collected the tents from Bath, brought them to London, then they've been industrially cleaned. And then they go to Auto Print in Peckham, where they're hand screen printed. Then they come back to us, and then they're cut. And then we work with either Making for Change or another factory we've started working with is called Tower in North London. But we're wanting to produce everything through Making for Change as our plan, because it's a project we work with at London College of Fashion. So they've got 2 sites now, but the first site they opened was in Downview Prison. So it was a training facility set up by Frances Corner, who was the Dean of London College of Fashion, as part of the Better Lives programme, because in the prison population in the UK, 4% is female, but they have one of the highest reoffending rates, with I think 89%. So the prison system is very much not set up for women. So and Frances was seeing the high reoffending rates and wanted to kind of be able to set something up to kind of stop that circle. So they have a workshop set up in LCF, and they have LCF technicians training. So we work with them, and then they've set up a new site in Poplar where our studio is moving into. So there'll be a secondary site for people to finish their training when they leave, or for working and also for popular community. So our studio's moving in with them.
Oh, it's amazing. So you door to door next to each other when you're working.
Exactly. So yeah, it's exciting. But we want to produce by the end, hopefully with Just Making for Change. But we were set to do that like this year, but obviously COVID has really put us back.
Yeah. Now it's amazing also like the last thing for the belt and hooded coat. I just could talk about it all day. There's also like still like the holes from the tents where like the pole went through, and it's just like at the beginning I was like, is this like I was writing to Nat about it. I was like, is this a mistake? Like I don't know. And then she like, totally explained it to me like with 8 lines, and my colleague and I were just like, yeah, this is totally a piece of art. And it's
thank you.
And just hearing about how long it takes and how many people like helped putting together a piece like this, I think it helps one to understand also like the price point of those clothes as well. Mm-hmm. Because as far as I've understood it, I think like someone who's able to buy a coat like this also helps like the women in Making for Change, because you I don't know if it's right, but you give back like 20% from each of the sales to the charity as well, right?
Yeah, so we give the 20% to like the charity that we work with on the project, so to Magpie. Yeah. And then we work with social manufacturing projects for making also, and British manufacturing. Yeah.
Cool. Another material that I have to talk about is like the toy waste as well. Like how does that come together? So
we basically, because we make like a new recycled material each collection. We were looking into, because the whole themes around the collection with Magpie were like childhood. So we were doing like lots of research into shapes with like the V&A Museum of Childhood, but we really wanted to look into like our toys still being produced in the UK, and could we kind of take the waste from that, and then we were speaking to so many different, like even like baby food, old cartons, see we could make like a waste material from that. But then I think Nat got in touch with this. It was like a company that produced like stuffed ponies, like teddies, like of little horses, and they have these like rosette ribbons that go around their neck. So they were like, oh, we've got loads of waste from the rosette. And then they were like, do you want us to just send it to you? We were like, okay, yeah. And they sent like this big box, and they were like just squares of ribbon, like not a full piece. So we were like, oh God, what can we do with this? And then we ended up making patches of the ribbon, which, was very time consuming. And then they all got ordered, and we were like, oh great, now we've got to like do this for so many jackets and trousers.
I just like I only can imagine how long it takes like to put those together, but I think like the final result is always worth it, just like to see it. It's really something else. How do the prints for the collection come together?
Yeah, so the last one we just did, the All of Our Children collection, we've worked with Melissa Kitty Joran. So she's an artist based in South London who I've actually been friends with for quite some time, and she's just really great and talented. So we introduced Melissa to the Magpie Project when we first started working with them, and then through lockdown, Melissa did like a drawing workshop digitally with her friend, and then we sent that out to the Mums and Minis WhatsApp group, and then that was all like a response to their workshop, and then Melissa turned those drawings into the prints. And then we also, the collection was called All of Our Children, and we were doing the flag commission for Somerset House. So one of the prints was what actually went on the flag, which was like a mother and a child with all of our children. So we were kind of, because we were doing the project for Somerset House, I was kind of looking into the archives of Somerset House, and They used to house all the birth, marriage and death certificates there, and it's like the 50-year anniversary of them leaving the site. So we were kind of thinking about like future generations and collective responsibility, and how there's 100,000 children under no recourse to public funds in the UK, kind of being like we should have collective responsibility for our next generation.
Amazing. How was I'm curious, when you first started showing in like during a London Fashion Week, how was the reaction like from the press or your peers? Like how did you experience that?
Well, I think at first, like, because I think the first thing we showed at London Fashion Week was a film that we made with Akinolo Davis Jr. And we did it in the community San Patrignano, which we work with in Italy, which is a drug rehabilitation centre. But they produce all of like our hand-woven materials. So we did a film in community with people in community. And I showed that at London Fashion Week for the first time. And yeah, we got a really good response, but I still don't think people kind of got it yet. Like, I think because like the first time I was talking about what I wanted to do, like on my art degree, like I remember being sat in a crit talking about it, and one of the boys on the course who was like always speaking out, just like was just like laughing, and like another girl was just like laughing at what I was saying, like, and then.
Because they wouldn't believe it, or?
Well, just because I was trying to set up a system and they didn't really understand it.
Okay.
And yeah, and I think it takes time for people to understand what you're doing and to understand the layers in which you're working. Because I still think like a lot of people will say to me, oh yeah, you're the one that does recycling.
Yeah.
But it's just like, that's not just what we do. Like we do recycling, but there's like many layers to the work as well.
Yeah, I think that sometimes you get this response when people can't fit you into a box, like, and they're not like, are you doing upcycling? And it's no, like there are like 3 more parts to it, but they just can't take it because like you're, like I said before, you're absolutely on the forefront of doing things in another way, and that there's no one else that did it like this before. So all they could was laughing about it.
Yeah, I think because also like I was in an art degree as well and doing like garments as well, so I vividly remember that moment because I was like, I'm not crazy, and just wanting to do a new way of working. So I think it's just taken a bit of time to people to understand what we're doing.
Yeah. But how was, like, compared to that, how was the reaction to your last 2 collections?
Yeah, I think, well, we've had a really great reaction, and I think I'm really lucky because I, have a lot of, we have a lot of support in the UK and with press, so we're very, very lucky to receive that. But yeah, from the Somerset House and what we did in January, it was all really well received. So I was, I'm really thankful for all the support that we get because everyone's been so amazing with supporting the projects we do.
Yeah. Did some like other big brands approach you and ask like for your experience or for your help as well, like after you laid out all of your concepts?
So we do work with other brands, larger brands. Yeah, I think it's important to, because obviously like what I'm doing is very niche and on a small scale. So I don't know how it would be upscaled like massively. But I think it's interesting to like help larger companies that have a larger effect on the planet work in different ways.
Yeah. So for example, because you started working with Adidas for your last collection as well, and also do consult them from what I've heard.
So we've done we do we've done projects with them, and just like trying to move forward with that. But yeah, we just did like a furniture project for their store in Carnaby Street, which was a really fun project. And I've wanted to go into furniture. So to be given the furniture brief, I was like, yes, definitely.
You also work with like recycled materials from Adidas as well. Like, how can one imagine,
Yeah.
like, where is it stored and how does it look like? Because I think I saw an Instagram story where you were like in the warehouse just collecting stuff.
Yeah. So they have a program called Stuffster. So we work with Stuffster. So you basically like can sell back your old Adidas product to them, and then they like mend it, wash it, or shred it if they can't do anything with it. So we went there to their warehouse to collect, to then be able to make the furniture. So we did that with Melissa. So we kind of were looking at like female endorsed athletes and how many women are like visible through sports media, and like in the US it's only 4%.
Wow.
So we did like Melissa did murals of like sponsored athletes and women within the Adidas community, which we patched work from the old garments. And then created like murals basically, which then went to a furniture maker and they stretched them on to the furniture. And we made like 3 like big sofas. But yeah, and then in the collection we were allowed to use the waste also for like we made like two looks from the old Stuffster product.
Yeah. Like you have like so much on your plate with like the social charities. You also finish some of the stuff yourself. And when we talked before, you said like this is your first weekend off since like December, the last weekend that you had. Like, how do you deal with like all the immense workload like for yourself to keep yourself motivated as well and keep yourself from burning out?
Yeah. Well, I think it's been really nice to have like the weekend off, because I think this time it was really difficult because we like all of our manufacturers were shut in the UK for COVID, so obviously like our orders got delayed to go out September, and then we had the new collection coming out and our sales campaign in September, so it was all happening in like 1 month. And we also had like our delivery for the Adidas store project at the same time. So it was just like a lot going on in one moment, which we've never really had that much before. So yeah, I think it's difficult to, we just had so much on at the same time. But no, I'm really, it could have been a lot worse and we could have no work on and it'd be really scary, so I think we've been really lucky through COVID also. Yeah,
and also the feeling that I get is that you really are so passionate about what you're doing, and so it probably doesn't feel like you're working all the time, but like it's just like taking your steps onto the next level, perhaps.
Yeah, I think I think for me it's super important the projects that we're working with, and working in the social project space and the charitable space is like where I spend that's where I like spending my time. So I know, and Nat always says when I come back because we volunteer at the start, like when we're working with a project, and at the start, like I'll come back and even though I'm really, really tired and have been working, we've been working a lot, like I get energized by being in those spaces. Because I think it gives me like the motivation.
Yeah, because you can actually see what you're like doing and who you're working with. Like you're really connected to all the steps. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I know that like the future is a little bit uncertain in these times, but nevertheless, that I wanted to ask is, what's next for you personally and for your brand?
So yeah, we're working on we're going to be working on new collection for February, we're also working on a commission for the Design Museum in London that will launch in May, and we're launching new collection in February. And we're trying to work with a new social project in Italy with knitwear. So yeah, like to introduce like a new social manufacturing project for next collection. And just I think trying to really think about what we're doing. Because I think now I'm not traveling so much. Like before I was traveling a lot for work, and I'm not having to do that. And then that relieves time. And I've been able to really think more about what we're doing and where we want to go, and just be more considerate in our projects as well. So I'm trying to introduce a new social project. Hopefully by the end of the year or next year, we'll be producing everything with Making for Change, because we work with another factory in North London. But we want to be producing, we'd like eventually to be everything produced through a social project. So that's important. But then also we are growing, but making sure we do it like in a sustainable way so that the social projects aren't like overrun.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Also, you said that you aren't able to travel anymore, but I also love to end the interviews with the question, or just with a fictional question. Imagine that you're at the airport and you would be given a free flight. Like, where would you go to and why?
I would go to San Patrignano in Italy, because I haven't been now in a year. So I usually go to do all the sampling with the girls. So I haven't been able to go. So that's definitely the first place I would go.
Amazing. So, Bethany, thank you so much for taking the time to doing this interview with us. For everyone, please check out everything that she's doing. It's just straight up amazing. And I'm very happy to launch Bethany Williams at the Wasted Hour. And very much looking forward to your next projects.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.